Have you ever wondered why some people manage to keep their homes impeccably organized without seemingly making an effort, while the rest of us seem to be fighting an endless battle against clutter? For years, I was that person. The one who opened closets fearing something might fall on my head, who hid the disorder in drawers when unexpected guests arrived, and who dreamed of a magazine-worthy home while living in constant chaos. My name is Eleanor, I'm 52 years old, I have 3 adult children, and a husband who never understood the concept of hanging your towel after a shower, until I discovered the method that completely transformed our home, and our lives. 5 years ago, when my youngest left for college, instead of experiencing the famous empty nest syndrome, I felt a strange mix of relief and despair as I looked at our house. I finally had the time to create the home I had always desired, but I had no idea where to start. Years of accumulation seemed like an insurmountable mountain to climb. That's when a neighbor lent me a book about the Japanese 5S method. I must confess that my first reaction was one of skepticism, just another passing organizational fad, I thought. Little did I know that those 5 Japanese words would forever change the way I viewed my living space. The first encounter with the 5S, when I opened that book, I didn't expect to find a system originally designed for industrial environments. How could this work in a family home? I wondered. But as I read on, I realized that the principles were surprisingly adaptable and, more importantly, profoundly logical. The 5S represent 5 Japanese words: Siri, sort; Seiten, set in order; Saizo, shine/clean; Saiketsu, standardize; and Shitsuke, sustain. It sounds simple, right? And it is precisely this simplicity that conceals its genius. What no one told me, and what I want to share with you today, is that the 5S are not just about physical organization. They are about creating a silent revolution in your home that affects everything, from your morning mood to family dynamics, and even your ability to think clearly. Siri, the art of letting go, in a way no one really tells you about the first S, Siri, goes far beyond throwing away what you don't use. I remember the first time I tried applying it to my wardrobe. Instead of starting by asking, what should I get rid of? I began with a different question: if I lost everything today, what would I buy again? This simple inversion changed everything. Rather than focusing solely on letting go, I focused on value. I realized I kept a red dress I hadn't worn in 15 years because it was expensive, yet I never hesitated to wear a cheap tracksuit that made me feel comfortable. One technique I developed was what I call the memory box method. For items with sentimental value, like my children's drawings that once filled entire boxes, I selected just one significant piece from each phase and photographed the rest. I created a digital album that took up no physical space while preserving all the memories. What surprised me most was how Siri revealed aspects of myself I had never known. I discovered I kept smaller-sized clothes as a form of self-punishment for having gained weight. I held on to kitchen utensils I never used because they represented the cook I thought I should be, not who I truly was. This first step wasn't just about creating physical space, it was about creating mental space. Every conscious decision about what deserved to occupy my space was also a decision about what deserved to occupy my life. Seiten, organization that flows with your real life. The second S, Seiten, is often translated as organize, but I understood it to be more about creating intuitive flows. Most organizational advice focuses on static categories: clothes with clothes, books with books. What I discovered is that true magic happens when you organize according to actual activities and routines. For example, instead of having a drawer labeled office supplies, I created a bill-paying station near the kitchen table where I naturally handle that task. It contains everything I need: pens, stamps, envelopes, a calculator, and even a small file for receipts, all together where the activity takes place. In the kitchen, I reorganized not by item type, but by work zones. The preparation zone has cutting boards, knives, and bowls within immediate reach, while the cooking zone holds all the necessary spices and utensils. This change reduced my steps in the kitchen by 60%. I even timed it. One discovery that changed my life was reorganizing my wardrobe by complete outfits, instead of by categories. Each hanger now holds a blouse paired with matching trousers or a skirt, plus accessories in a small attached bag. This reduced my morning routine from 25 minutes to 5 minutes and eliminated that pile of rejected clothes on the bedroom chair. Another little-known trick, I labeled not only what is inside boxes and drawers, but also what is not inside. For instance, a label on the box for Christmas decorations states, "Extra lights are in the garage." This eliminated the frustration of knowing you have something but not being able to find it. SIZO, cleaning as active meditation. The third S, SIZO, might seem obvious, cleaning, right? But there is a depth here that is rarely explored. In the original 5S, SIZO is not just about cleaning, but about inspecting as you clean. It is almost a form of active meditation. I developed a ritual I call 5 minutes of mindfulness. Before cleaning a space, I sit for 5 minutes and simply observe. I notice patterns, where dust accumulates, which surfaces we really use, and which remain untouched. This simple act of observation allowed me to redesign spaces to reduce problem areas. For example, I noticed that the area near the door always gathered shoes, mail, and keys. Instead of fighting against that natural pattern, I set up an entry station with individual hooks, a small table for mail, and a bench with shoe storage. Working with our habits rather than against them made cleaning much easier. I also discovered the power of the right tools versus expensive products. A simple set of color-coded microfiber cloths, blue for glass, green for the kitchen, etc., revolutionized my cleaning far more than any miracle product I had purchased. A curious practice I developed was what I call cleanup on the go. Whenever I left a room, I would pick up something that didn't belong and take it to its proper place. It's a small habit that prevents clutter from accumulating without feeling like extra work. The most surprising transformation came when I stopped viewing cleaning as a chore and began to see it as a form of care, for my home, my family, and myself. Cleaning became almost therapeutic, a time to process thoughts while creating physical order. Saiketsu, creating systems, not rules. The fourth S, Saiketsu, is about standardization, but I found it works best when we think of it as systems rather than rules. Rules are often broken, well-designed systems are naturally followed. A system that revolutionized our home was what I call one in, one out. Before buying any new item, something similar must leave. This applies to everything, from clothing to books and kitchen utensils. It isn't a rigid rule that induces guilt when broken, but a system that naturally makes us question every new acquisition. Another system was the expiration date for stored items. Each storage box has a label with the date it was sealed and a future review date, usually 6 months or a year later. If, when revisited, we no longer needed anything from that box, it was time to consider whether to keep those items. To maintain consistency among everyone in the home, we created what we call 5S operation manuals for shared areas. These aren't lists of rules but simple visual instructions. For example, a photo of the perfectly organized dish cabinet is discreetly posted inside the door, serving as a visual reference without verbal explanation. An interesting discovery was the rule of the eyes. Items used daily are kept at eye level, weekly items below, and occasional items above or stored away. We applied this throughout the house, from the pantry to the bathroom, and it drastically reduced the time spent searching for items. The most impactful system was the natural cycles approach, recognizing that organization isn't a fixed state, but a continuous cycle. Each season begins with a systematic review, coinciding with the natural cycles of life. Spring brings a renewal throughout the home, autumn focuses on preparing for winter and the indoor months. Working with these cycles, rather than expecting constant perfection, eliminated much of the frustration associated with maintenance. Shitsuke, gentle discipline that transforms habits. The fifth and final S, Shitsuke, is often translated as discipline, but I prefer to think of it as gentle consistency. This was the S I encountered the most resistance to, both in myself and in my family. The turning point came when I stopped viewing discipline as a matter of willpower and began treating it as habit design. I read about how habits are formed and realized that we need clear triggers, routines, and rewards. I started small, with what I call an anchor habit. Every day after breakfast, the anchor, I dedicated just 3 minutes to organizing a small area, whether it was a drawer or just a shelf. The reward was marking it on a visible calendar. Seeing the chain of marks grow motivated me to continue. For my family, I introduced the concept of a 10-minute reset. A timer is set and everyone participates in restoring the house to basic order. With upbeat music and working together, it became almost like a game to see how much we could accomplish in just 10 minutes. The reward? A serene environment for the evening and the satisfaction of working as a team. One technique we developed was the monthly 5S Family Council. Instead of me being the organization police, we gathered to discuss what was working and what needed adjustment. This transformed organization from my obsession into our collective project. The most surprising revelation was how consistency in one area spilled over into others. When I began applying the 5S principles in the kitchen, I naturally extended them to meal planning, then finances, and eventually even time management. The principles are truly universal. What no one told me about the 5S method is how it transcends the physical to reorganize the internal aspects of life. That was the deepest discovery. As our external environment became more organized, I noticed subtle changes in our family dynamics. Conversations became more focused, without the constant background distraction of "we need to tidy that up." We ended up with more quality time together because we spent less time searching for things or dealing with clutter. My husband, who initially resisted the entire process, surprised me the most. After 6 months, he commented, "You know, I can't explain it, but I feel calmer when I get home now." It wasn't just the appearance of the house, it was the more tranquil energy we had created. In relationships, I noticed I stopped using words like always and never during arguments. No more "you never put things away." The 5S mindset taught me to be more specific and address the root causes of issues instead of generalizing. Professionally, although I haven't worked outside the home for years, I found new confidence to resume creative projects I had abandoned. My small craft business, once a chaotic mix of materials and unfinished projects, became a functional studio where creativity flows without logistical obstacles. Financially, the 5S principles helped us identify leaks in our budget. Just as with unnecessary physical items, we had unnecessary expenses hidden in our financial clutter. Applying the same rigor to our accounts allowed us to increase our savings by 15% without feeling like we were sacrificing our quality of life. It would be dishonest to suggest that this journey was linear or without setbacks. There were moments of intense frustration, relapses into old habits, and family resistance that tested my determination. The greatest challenge was what I call the 5S plateau. That moment, about 3 months in, when the initial enthusiasm faded and we still weren't reaping all the benefits. It felt like we were working hard with no visible progress. I overcame this by breaking large goals into micro steps and celebrating small victories. Another challenge was balancing the ideal versus the real. In the beginning, I sought perfection in every area before moving on. This led to exhaustion and demotivation. I learned that good enough is often better than perfect but never finished. Family resistance was overcome not with lectures or demands, but by demonstrating the benefits. When my husband saw how easily he could find his tools in our reorganized garage, he became an advocate for the system. When my children visited and noticed how easily they could find cherished items from their childhood that had been stored away, they understood its value. There was also the unexpected challenge of social judgment. Some friends insinuated that I had too much free time, or that I was obsessed with control. It was difficult not to be affected by these comments. What helped was realizing that organization wasn't an end in itself, but a means to a more present and meaningful life. Over the years, I developed small rituals that sustain our 5S system and have become cherished parts of my day. At the morning moment of clarity, I spend 10 minutes each morning planning my day as I make my bed and open the curtains. This small ritual sets the intention for both my space and my time. At the entry and exit blessing, we established a little ritual upon entering the home. Keys on a hook, shoes on a shelf, bag in its designated spot. Almost like a decompression ritual signaling the transition into our domestic space. Similarly, we have an exit routine that ensures we take everything we need. At the sunset review, in the last 15 minutes before dinner, we do a quick reset of the house. It's amazing how this small habit prevents clutter from building up. At the object gratitude ritual, before parting with something, I take a moment to thank it for the service it provided. It might sound strange, but this small moment of acknowledgement makes letting go much easier and more meaningful. At the seasonal ceremony, With each change of season, we conduct a deeper review, not only swapping out seasonal clothing but also updating decorative elements and even household routines. This keeps our home in tune with the natural rhythms of the year. The unexpected wisdom of 5S. The deepest lesson the 5S taught me wasn't about organization, but about intention. Every object in our home is now there by choice, not by chance or inertia. Every system exists because it serves a purpose in our real lives, not to uphold an ideal of perfection. I learned that true organization isn't about having less. It's about making room for what truly matters. It isn't about rigidity, but about a flow that supports life rather than restricting it. The 5 Japanese words that once seemed so strange 5 years ago have become life philosophies that go beyond tidying drawers or labeling shelves. They are principles for a mindful life. Siri, recognize the essential and have the courage to let go of the rest. Seton, create flows that support your true way of living. Saizo, practice mindfulness to reveal the truth beneath the surface. Saiketsu, develop systems that make the right path the easiest one. Shitsuke, cultivate gentle consistency that builds over time. My home isn't perfect. We still have moments of chaos, areas that need attention, and days when the principles take a back seat. But the difference is that now we have a pathway back to order that doesn't rely on marathon cleaning sessions or overly complex systems. In sharing my journey, I am not suggesting that you must follow the exact same steps. The beauty of the 5S method is that it can be adapted for any home, family, or lifestyle. Perhaps you begin with one drawer, one closet, or even your digital calendar. The point isn't instant perfection, but taking that first intentional step toward a space that reflects and supports who you truly are and the life you wish to create. Organization, I discovered, isn't about having a perfect home to impress others. It's about creating a sanctuary that nurtures your best self and supports your most important relationships. So, from my organized yet still lived-in home to yours, I invite you to consider, what could change in your life if the space around you worked with you, rather than against you? What new possibilities might arise if the energy spent searching, organizing, and reorganizing were freed up for other purposes? The 5S method didn't just give me a more organized home, it gave me a more intentional life. And perhaps that is the true secret the Japanese discovered long ago, that external order can cultivate internal clarity, and together they create the space for a truly fulfilling life.